My name's George Farmer. You can see that there. Like I said, I was deeply grateful to be here today, to be able to speak to you guys and communicate my absolute passion for aquascaping. But this talk is focusing on aquarium plants, but also plants in general, and what an impact these plants can make on our lives and actually help to change our minds. Literally can change our minds. So 10 years ago, almost to the day actually, I was blown up in Afghanistan in a roadside bomb. It was really scary, and it made me realise I've got a real passion for aquarium plants. I haven't got a passion for bomb disposal. I'm going to turn my career towards something I'm deeply passionate about. And that was 10 years ago. And now I'm here speaking to you guys. I've converted that energy, that negative, dark energy from the conflict, from getting blown up. And I've converted that into light energy. And, I'm speaking to that with you right now, right? So, 10 years ago, literally almost to the day, that's pretty crazy. Who knows what that plant's called? Anyone? Hands up. You should know. Anyone? No? Protopernica palustris, mermaid weed. Yeah, I think you guys call it over here. Is that right? Yeah? Absolutely beautiful. Do you agree? Yes? Yes. Okay. Does anyone know what these spots are on here? Sir? Pearling. And do we know what pearling is? Oxygen. Do you know what oxygen does? It sustains life on this planet, right? Plants are responsible for our lives right now, okay? Just let that sink in for a minute. So what we're doing, when we're keeping aquarium plants, we are sustaining life, yeah? Not just for the fish, but for the bacteria in the aquarium, for the snails, for the shrimps, for all the other microorganisms that we have no idea about. This oxygen is absolutely fundamental. It's keeping us alive right now. Without it, we would be dead. Okay? So that's quite powerful, isn't it? Is that a powerful message? Okay. So this is another thought experiment for you. Have two identical aquariums next to each other. Have one just really clean, healthy water, really, really clean, like pure, really healthy fish, no disease, really high ends, really well bred, selectively bred. Everything's amazing, good oxygen levels. The aquarium is empty. It's just got this pure water and these beautiful fish in there. You've got another aquarium next to it. If you're picturing this, right, in your mind's eye, you've got another aquarium in there. You've got some aquarium plants. You've got some hardscape. You've got some soil. You've got the same fish. Which looks nicer to the human eye? Which one looks nicer? The aquascape or the pure fish? Okay. So one's like a fish tank, isn't it? One's an aquascape. One's a creation. One's something that we've created and connected with. The other one's just used to showcase a product almost. It's not what we're doing with that fish tank. We're not connected with it. It's just an attachment. It's just a possession to kind of hold and show off to people and say, I've got these beautiful fish. Aren't they amazing? They're mine. I've done that. Isn't that great? That's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to understand that is an attachment, okay? What I like to do is talk about connection. And connection is very different to attachment, okay? When you're connected with your aquarium, you are part of it. Those living things, you are connected with them. They are completely dependent on you for their survival. That's a massive responsibility, And you should feel that connection, because that responsibility gives you, hopefully, a motivation to want to give them their best. Because by doing that, you're actually taking care of yourself as well. Does that make sense? So the more effort and energy and positive, authentic connection we have with our aquariums and our plants and everything that is in our care, and the people that are around us, and the animals and the plants and the fungi, you know, all these things, we're all connected, right? And this is the magic word, is connection. And it's very different to attachment. Next slide. Does anyone know this aquarium? This is in my house, in my garden shed. It holds 40,000 gallons. It's not mine. This is in Lisbon. It's in an exhibition called Florestas Submersas, which is a Portuguese translation meaning underwater forest. You can see why, can't you? So this holds, like I say, 40,000 gallons. That's 160,000 litres for my Canadian and UK-based friends. It's actually a U-shape. So it goes along here for about 10 meters, along here for about 20 meters, and then along here for about 10 meters, okay? That's 1 meter is 3 feet, 36 inches. So I visited this in 2019. It's my highest viewed video on YouTube. Please subscribe. It's the most powerful experience I've had to connect. We're talking about connection. It was the most powerful experience I've ever had connecting with any one single aquascape. You can see why. But there's a more important story behind this aquascape. This was created by Takashi Amano. Hands up who's heard of Takashi Amano. That's good. It's good to know. So he sadly passed away in 2015. But before he did that, he designed and created, with a team of 40 other people from Japan and Europe, this masterpiece. And it's still running to this day. It was only meant to be a temporary exhibit for 18 months, and it's now still running 7 years later. It's been the most visited exhibit at the Public Aquarium in Portugal, and I think in Europe. And for me, that's so powerful because it's helping to connect these people with nature. You know, when people walk and see this, they're absolutely, fully embedded, surrounded. You can't help but be connected, you know, with this nature that Takashi Amano has helped us understand. You know, and this is why I get so passionate and sometimes emotional about this connection, because for me, it's beyond a hobby. For me, of course, it's my job, but it's beyond a job. It's a career. It's beyond a career. It's actually a way of life for me now, what I do. We're talking about plants, talking about aquascaping, talking about nature, talking about this magical connection that we all share with nature. We're all part of nature, okay? And going back to the plants, I'm aware the topic is supposed to be about plants, but we are all part of this nature. Plants are part of the nature. You know, they create this oxygen that we're all breathing right now that sustains the life, all of the life on this planet, most of the life. There's non-anaerobic bacteria and stuff, but we don't need to go down that rabbit hole right now. So this exhibit actually moved me to tears. You know, I walked in with my wife and the music's playing. They've got this background music that was actually composed specifically for this exhibit. And it's very kind of melancholy. It's classical music, and it just sets the mood, it sets the tone. There's some notice boards as you walk in to tell the story of Amano, the nature aquarium spirits, the nature aquarium philosophy, you know, this magical connection with nature that we can really embody with aquascaping, with our planted aquariums. We can going back to the oxygen bubble. You know, this is like would you get this in your aquarium at home? Hands up who's ever had pearling in their tanks at home. It's a really desirable thing for planted tank hobbyists. It's almost like, I used to see it as almost a bragging thing. You know, like, oh yeah, I've got pearling, aren't I great? I feel that joy, but now it's authentic joy, not because I'm bragging, because of this attachment that we had, remember? But now I'm getting the joy because I understand what I'm witnessing is pure essence of life. Those white spots there, they represent that initial creativity, that initial creation. That's what this is. You know, and we are so privileged as human beings to have the consciousness to witness this in the present moment. And when next time you see these bubbles on your aquarium leaves, maybe you think about them in a different way, you know. And so when you are in that moment, looking at your aquarium, you know, just have a little think about what you're actually witnessing, you know. This is your creation. You are responsible for this. The energy you put into that, you will receive back in abundance. So, you know, I can't underestimate the power of plants. You know, this talk, I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about, and I rehearsed it kind of thing this morning, and I kept switching ideas, and I realized as I was doing this told the story in itself, because what I'm doing is trying to communicate this idea that, you know, through the power of aquariums, and even better for me, planted aquariums, I can really hopefully get this message across to you. That what we're doing as humans is having this ultimate luxury, really, this ultimate privilege of being able to nurture and care for something so beautiful. You know, it's a beautifully manicured aquascape. There's nothing like it. I would argue you could show something like this to anyone in the world, and they hopefully would say, he's a very handsome man on the right there. Like, I had to wait for the laughs there. Sorry. It's my English humor. So this, you know, it's a beautiful aquascape. I hope you agree. We have such a beautiful selection of plants here. All tropical aquarium plants, of course. Absolutely stunning. Neon tetras is actually a mixture here. This is really clever. A mixture of cardinal tetras and neon tetras. It's a really, really clever trick. Not many people do it. It's just a tiny little extra subtlety to the layout. I really like it. And we've got other techniques that we're doing here that I'd like to talk about. We've got a lovely carpeting plant here, but we've got this intermittent kind of texture thing going on. This adds this kind of naturalistic kind of vibe that we're going for with aquascaping. You know, I'm a huge fan of the nature aquarium concept, you know, with Takashi Amano who came up with this. And this is a classic example of the nature aquarium, of course, featuring lush, beautiful, vibrant aquarium plants. You know, these provide so many benefits for the aquarium. You know, they provide oxygen, which we've talked about at some length now. They provide shelter and security for the fish. In fact, you could argue there's almost too much shelter and security in there right now. Very crowded. They look beautiful, don't they? I mean, look at the colors, look at the textures. And you as the creator, you as the artist, you have the ability to create something as beautiful as that. And some of you haven't maybe got the confidence to do this yet, but it is very, very achievable. The information is out there in abundance. Some guy's written a book about it even. There's YouTube videos that you can see. There's even TikTok now where you can get aquascaping content, and of course Instagram. So the knowledge is out there, how to grow these aquarium plants. But yes, it's a beautiful hobby. Some of you will recognize this aquarium. This is an interesting story around aquarium plants and discus. So I always really wanted to keep discus. You know, I saw discus on the cover of a very famous aquarium book. I think it was a Bench Atlas. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, I want to keep those. Attachment. So 15, 20 years later, I had the opportunity to do it and keep them. And I wanted to keep them in a planted tank, of course. And this is probably the best it looked. But it's really hard to keep, in my mind, in my experience, it was really hard to keep discus and plants together. They have different needs, basically. And you're always compromising on one's needs to satisfy the other. And there's a lesson there. You know, there's quite a deep lesson there, in fact. You know, I'll keep it a light lesson. You should only keep what you're capable of with ease, right? You can keep stuff that's challenging, but you need to put the work in, and because you have a responsibility for that living thing, to give it what it needs. You know, we are caregivers, we are parents almost to these animals. We have a responsibility for them. And we have a responsibility to the plants as well. These are living things. They're so often regarded as disposable objects, you know, single-use plastic kind of thing. You know, it's not right. You know, these are living things. Arguably, there's evidence now that suggests plants are almost conscious. You know, I'm not going to say don't eat plants. Where would vegans go? You know? But we have to, in my mind, pay these living things some respect. And as humans, it feels like we don't do that enough. You know, I don't want to talk about, you know, political issues, but it seems there's a lot of destruction, a lot of division and chaos in the world right now. And in my mind, if I can help just a little bit and help people feel a bit more relaxed, connect with nature a bit more, help, you know, aquarium plants can help to do this, you know, and this is such a beautiful thing to live with. And it can just take you away from all of that chaos and division that we're constantly bombarded with, aren't we? As soon as you put the news on, you guys have 24-hour news networks, right? That's scary. And as humans, we're negative bias programmed, right? We're attracted to negative news. We know this. We're addicted to it. So if I can help kind of neutralize that a little bit by connecting you with something more peaceful and more real and more conscious, because the stuff that's going on in the news is going on in you know, elsewhere, but it's not going on in your mind. It's only going on in your mind if you let it go in your mind. And the best way to stop it from going on in your mind is to connect with something pure and real. And that is nature, you know. And we have the opportunity to get this nature in our homes. And that's a beautiful thing. And we have such a privilege to be able to do this. And now we have all of the equipment available, all of the knowledge freely available. The internet, you can learn anything you like for free now on the internet. You just need to know where to look. I suggest you go on the George Farmer YouTube page. It's pretty good. So the power of plants, how can plants change your mind? You know, there's lots of ways. I'm just going to have a little drink. Excuse me, one moment. Does anyone have any questions so far? Sir, I'm going to pass you the microphone. I'm going to have a little drink.
So you mentioned a minute ago that that's a trick people like to do with the neons mixed with the cardinals. Yeah. Was that a joke or was that real? I couldn't tell, and if so, what's the trick?
That wasn't a joke. I'm sorry for my dry sarcasm, English humour. Yeah. The trick is just to almost trick your mind, because you wouldn't consciously see that necessarily. Did anyone notice that there was neons and cardinals in there until I pointed it out? No. But when I pointed it out, could you see it? That's the trick. Yeah. Any other questions? No? I could even talk about algae if you want.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take that away from you, sir. So one of the things I'm interested in is going from that idea of possession or acquiring to connecting with, and so kind of getting into that mindset and how you suggest.
Attachment to connection. Great question. How to switch your mindset from attachment to connection. Yeah, so I just briefly cover what that means again, because it's quite, it's a bit off topic, but is everyone comfortable with this topic? Yeah, thank you. So you have to, wow, how do I answer this? So I try to keep it simple. Just be kind to yourself and everyone else, but don't be nice. Yeah? Does that make sense? Be kind, be authentically kind, but don't be overly nice. Because by doing that, you're being inauthentic to yourself. It's called people pleasing. Yeah, and most people do it because it's a protection thing. We're trying to protect ourselves because as children, we were super vulnerable, right? And to protect ourselves, we would do anything to protect ourselves. And that included making everyone around us happy because that would try to keep us safe. But we carry those habits forward into adult life. And then they start to encroach on relationships, adult relationships and stuff. So this isn't a therapy session, by the way, but it does sound like one, doesn't it? I'm sorry about that. So the magic is being kind. Let's learn to love yourself first, yeah? And then actually you don't need to go looking for it so much because it will come to you because you'll just be so attractive because you love yourself. But it's authentic self-love. It's not like arrogance or egoic, because once you realize authentically who you are, you can then love yourself authentically. But that's where the work comes in, to learn how to love yourself. Yeah. But you can, and aquarium plants can help do that, by the way, because what aquarium plants can do, you know, just that example of the production of oxygen. We'll go back to that beautiful photo. These are all my own photos, by the way. So this production of the oxygen bubbles, if you sit in front of an aquarium for long enough and all you think about is what you're visibly seeing, you'll slip into full consciousness. This is a state where you're not thinking about the future. You're not anxious about forthcoming events. You're not worried about picking the kids up at a certain time. You're not worried about the washing machine beeping. You know, you are just also not worrying about the past. You know, the older you get, you tend to think about the past. The younger you are, the more you tend to think about the future. The magic is in between, where you think about only where you are right now. And Aquascape is a very, very useful tool to help you to do that. You can have a dedicated chair, I do, and I have a whole sofa now dedicated to my biggest aquarium. And I use it as therapy. You know, I'll sit in front of the aquarium and I turn all my devices off, do not disturb, and I'll sit in the front of the aquarium. Don't tell anyone this. I even turn the filters off for 30 minutes. And everything is silent, okay? And you just watch. And you just let it be. There's no thoughts about the future. There's no thoughts about the past. It's just you and the power of now. You and that aquarium. You are coexisting. You are in a dialogue. You're in a magical conversation with these life forms in that glass box that you've helped to create. Isn't that sounds magical, right? Isn't that a magical relationship? So, to answer the question, I don't know if that helped to answer the question. Yeah. It's a really good topic. Is everyone okay with this topic? I know it isn't necessarily 100% about aquarium plants.
So what I'm saying is, you know, like we're here in the middle of Aquashella, we're primed for consumerism here in the middle of this big consumer event, right? And how do we go back to that? You know, how do we switch from the, ooh, I really like that fish, it's so pretty. Look at my pretty betta, you know, right? And or ooh, look at this pretty plant, and really turning it into a you know, a caring. And so I guess I'm just curious about switching that mindset.
It's a really straightforward answer. It's one word, and it might scare some of you. Meditation. Just being comfortable, sitting with yourself, alone, with no distractions, focusing on your breathing, and being mindful. You know, it's not a mindfulness talk, but you know, if anyone wants to get into meditation, mindfulness is a perfect entry. And I highly recommend it. If anything I've talked about in terms of connection with the nature and understanding the consciousness a bit more, then look into mindfulness is my recommendation. You know, I'm not here to talk about, you know, that kind of thing necessarily. I am very interested in it. So if you want to kind of get in touch at a future point, then let me know. But back to aquarium plants, guys. Here we go. Nice bit of eye candy. Does anyone know the species of fish? Harlequin rasbora? Excellent. Anyone know this plant here? Ludwigia palustris super red? Brilliant. And the moss, I think this is spiky moss. And this, for me, this represents, you know, something really beautiful. Does everyone agree that's a beautiful photo? Yeah. Does anyone know why it's beautiful? Just have a think about that. I'm not going to ask you to speak out loud, but this is an interesting thought experiment. What makes beauty? You know, as humans, we have an intuition about beauty. It's kind of programmed in. We can also develop a sensibility towards beauty, so we can train ourselves almost to appreciate certain styles of beauty. And we all have our own individual styles, don't we? I mean, look at us. Some of us are wearing Aquashella t-shirts. Some, you know, we're all individual, but we all have some things in common too. But generally speaking, we can all agree that this is beautiful. It could actually be a bit more beautiful compositionally, but we have, you know, the direction of the fish. You can see they're all kind of swimming in the same direction. This guy's a bit of a rebel, no drama. So this indicates a dynamic flow. You know, we've got like a focal point red up here. This is the only kind of compositionally, this isn't great actually. This would be nicer if it was a bit over here. This is nice. Compositionally perfect. This is kind of rule of thirds. Has everyone heard of the rule of thirds? When you get your camera out, sometimes there's a grid on there, and then you can line up those intersections on the grid with your focal point, the subject that you want to focus on. So when you're taking a portrait or a landscape photo, just have a think about that. When you see that grid, line up those crosshairs, if you like, with your focal point, and normally you'll find the photo is a lot nicer balance. And we can use this technique in aquascaping as well, positioning in our red plants or our dominant hardscape off to about 1/3. Real top tip for you. Here we go. Oh, look at that oxygen bubble. We love those, don't we now? This is Ludwigia palustris super red. This is a absolutely stunning plant, an easy plant as well. It doesn't actually need much light to stay red. A really, really fast grower. Is it available? Can you guys get it over here? Yeah. The beautiful thing here is the pearling. You can see the collection here of the oxygen under the leaf. And eventually you can sit there, and I've done this, and you can sit there and you can just gradually watch that bubble will grow and grow and grow, and then shoots to the surface. Pop. That oxygen now, that pure oxygen is now in the air. We're breathing that. We are now part of that plant. Do you agree? Yeah? Even if it's like 1 atom's worth of oxygen, still part of us. Yeah? We're all part of the same thing. Anyone know that plant? No? Tropica guys at the back? Myriophyllum guyana. Again, I just can't stop seeing the oxygen now. Everywhere. And that's interesting that we can see the oxygen, can't we? We can't see it now, it's in the air. But to see it in the water, that's really special. That's a privilege again. We're so privileged, aren't we? To witness all of these beautiful things, all of these natural processes. So grateful for that. I'm going to do the last slide, and then I'm going to go into a Q&A, and then I'll call it a close, okay? It's quite a powerful slide, this one. So I'm going to build up the anticipation. Is everyone enjoying themselves so far? It's been a different one, hasn't it? I told you. Okay, so I'd much rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. So I say that again. I'd much rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. So 10 years ago, I got blown up. And then I made the decision, pretty sharpish, to do a full-time career in aquascaping. And I'm so grateful for that explosion. You know, so much suffering came out of it. But after the suffering, you know, comes the joy. Yeah, because you learn from the suffering, and you can carry the suffering around with you. But if you learn how to use that and let it go, through that process, there's so much learning and joy and wisdom. And then hopefully I can pass that wisdom on to some of you guys. You don't have to go through the amount of suffering I did, hopefully. I know some of you probably have. You know, we all suffer in our own ways, right? But luckily, the imagined suffering is almost always worse than reality. And we can help completely avoid the suffering if we go into that fully mindful state, which we talked about. And we can do that with our aquascapes. So the next time you're looking at your aquarium, hopefully you might be thinking about it in a different way. And it can help you maybe escape from the future worry and the past regret. And you can just stay fully focused in the moment as it is right now. Okay, Q&A time. You can clap if you want. I know some of you want to. Yeah.
We were just having this discussion. You were talking about the thirds of the aquascape. Okay, the tank right there. How big is that? And is the log, is it central to the tank, or is it off to the side?
So let me show you exactly. So the tank comes here. This is the focal point, and it's exactly 1/3. Yeah, it's 1/3 along this way. So you've got 2/3 empty space here, basically. Next question.
I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but I kind of want to hear it for myself. What are your absolute best tips for a really healthy, bushy, healthy, heavily planted tank?
That is a great question. I love these kind of questions. What's the top tips for getting the most success out of your aquarium plants? Lighting. Yeah, think about your lighting. Not too much, because too much you'll get algae, and not enough, you won't be able to grow the plant. So you need to get that balance. CO2 injection, absolutely recommend carbon dioxide injection if you can afford it. You'll get so much better chance of success with your plants, especially in North America, because you have some great plants here, but a lot of the time in the pet stores, a lot of them are suffering. So by the time you get them to your home and your home aquarium, a lot of them are kind of dying off. So CO2 injection is going to give them the best chance, you know, really give them some good CO2. I don't know if you guys know this, but we're carbon-based. This is getting interesting again. We're carbon-based life forms, right? And plants are carbon-based life forms too. So to get the plant to grow better, we need to give it more carbon, right? The best way the plant can get carbon from, CO2, okay? Guess what happens? The plant grabs CO2, right? Carbon dioxide. Bit of chemistry lesson for you. CO2, carbon is the C, O2 is the oxygen, okay? The plant gets the light, this magical light thing called the sun, is just beaming away magically, sending these photons of like energy towards this plant. This plant grabs these photons, this light energy, and somehow it magically extracts the carbon from the carbon dioxide, turns that carbon into new plant matter, and then poos out oxygen. Basically, that's how it works. How crazy is that? That is magic. So, CO2 you need. I know I went off on one there. That's okay. That's what I do best. So, light CO2, liquid fertilizers, absolutely brilliant. But, you know, it's actually better to put too much than too little, in fact. A lot of people are skeptical of too much liquid fertilizer. They're a bit worried about their shrimp, maybe, and the copper. The vast majority of liquid fertilizers have very, very tiny amounts of copper in. And actually, copper is necessary for the blood production of shrimp. So don't be afraid of the copper in liquid fertilizers. Circulation is really important, and filtration, of course. Those two are linked. We tend to use higher levels of circulation with higher levels of plant growth. We need to get the nutrients, the CO2, around the aquarium as well as we can. So you tend to employ higher levels of circulation to do that. Another benefit to those high levels of circulation is that it helps to keep the aquarium clean. You know, it's going to remove all the detritus, hopefully, and suck it into your external filter, your internal filter, or whatever. Another, probably the most underestimated, important tip for success with any planted aquarium is do the work. Yeah? So, I mean, everything. Like, do a bit of research, find out the capability of your lighting, for instance. So, don't buy difficult plants if you've only got a regular stock light, for instance. Don't buy difficult plants if you haven't got CO2 injection. So, you know, just make sure the plants that you're going to buy are appropriate for the system that you already own, or be prepared to upgrade the system according to the plants that you're growing. That's probably the top tip I would do. Also, don't forget to follow me. You can also buy my book, which has lots of top tips in. Good. Any other questions? Sir?
So I keep coral reef tanks as well as high-tech planted tanks. I enjoy both of them. But over the years, I've found the planted tanks seem more peaceful. Like, I'm able to meditate and have more peace watching the planted tanks, even though I enjoy keeping a reef tank. And I've thought about why is that? And so I guess my question to you is, do you think there's anything in the correlation between basically simplicity and serenity versus a reef tank? Things can go really south really quick, and there's a lot of complexity there. I can't even relax enjoying it, even though it's pretty.
It's a really interesting point, because I talked about this at some length earlier. The gentleman, what's your name, sir? Connor asked a great question. He's basically comparing reef aquarium keeping to planted aquarium keeping. Yeah, and It's a different philosophy. It's a completely different hobby, in my opinion, at my level. So, in my mind, a reef tank is the ultimate attachment, right? Because I don't mean that in any, it's a very generic thing to say and a generalized statement, but in my mind, the higher end reef keepers that have the really high tech stuff, that are growing the most difficult corals and keeping the most expensive fish and expensive corals, it's all based on almost like a braggability, competitive element mindset. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. So it's like setting yourself a challenge, and I will be happy once I've got to that point. But this is the opposite from living in the present moment. You're giving your happiness up to the future by doing that, okay? So the beauty of a nature aquarium or an aquascape, the kind of thing I'm into on the right here, it just teaches you to be more present, patience. Although the interesting thing with corals, they tend to grow more slowly. It's more of the equipment and the technology behind that seems to be more of the fascination rather than the connection with the nature. Whereas with a planted aquarium, it's more the genuine, authentic connection with nature rather than a connection to any equipment or labeling of a product or a specimen. You know, the fact that we have to call these things these such crazy names, these zoas, and it's just a metaphor for something, you know, the man-made, the human desire to control. You know, that's like, for me, that's more the reef element. These super high-tech reefs are so beautiful, they're so stunning, but they're so fragile. And they're on a knife edge. You know, 2 hours without power, you could lose $20,000 worth of stock. Planted aquarium, you lose power for 3 weeks. It's going to probably be okay. Yeah. So, any other questions? I think we'll do one more, and then I need some water. Madam.
So I like meditating and I like being in the moment, but I like things that evoke emotion too. What are your favorite emotions to feel?
My favorite emotions to feel, yeah. Sorry, can you ask the question again? Okay, great question. What emotions do I like to invoke during these kind of meditative states? So the beauty about the meditation is that there's almost, the emotions come and go. This is the interesting thing. And that's the meditation, because you have the watching mind, right? So you're conscious of these thoughts that are coming in. And depending on what those thoughts are, you can just let them go. You can analyze them. You can do what you like with them. But that's the beauty. And the emotion just comes with that process. You just have to let the process happen to you. You can't overthink it. It's hard for me to say in words, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying without the words sometimes. Yeah? Cool. Any more questions? Okay, this is the last one, sir.
So my question is more on the line of form-wise function, right? Some people try to not compete. Same time, they're trying to give the best shot at the fish breeding or things like that by simulating the natural environment. What is your take on that?
Form versus function, basically. So, yeah, we can approach the aquarium hobby in two very distinct ways. Form, which is more the aesthetic. This is very much form-based aquascape. And then we can go more functional. I don't, unfortunately, have any kind of biotype pictures. Oh, I do. One moment, please. Ah, no, we don't. Apologies. Black water. If you see in the aqua gallery, you'll see the black waterscape. This is very much functional-based aquascaping, purely catering for the fish's needs, but also incorporating some form as well. So functionally perfect, water chemistry, temperature, foods, circulation levels, pH, temperature, plant choice, substrate choice, all the rest of it. Everything's functionally perfect. But then we can use aquascaping techniques to make the form perfect. So they're not mutually exclusive. Yeah? But we can go super heavy on the form, and we can go kind of diorama style, which is literally copying a landscape and putting that in the aquarium. I'm more of a fan of the functional, you know, because we're looking after these living things, right? That should always be the priority. You know, that's the one thing I want you to take home today, is that we have responsibility as aquarium keepers to look after not only the animals in our care and the plants, of course, but ourselves. And the best way we can look after ourselves is by looking after others sometimes. Okay. Cheerio.